any possibility that you would go back in the ring and fight someone like a Tank Davis?
If he want, and if he come up to 147, then we can fight.
He can't meet you at 140?
145.
I think fighting somebody like Pacquiao it give me hope for sure. It doesn't matter who I fight. It doesn't matter. As long as I put on a great performance.
He's the knockout king of this generation, short, stocky, and silent until it's time to explode. Gervonta Tank Davis doesn't talk much, he lets his fists do the storytelling. But in the days leading up to his next war in the ring, a strange rumor began to spread, not about his opponent, not about his weight, but about who he was training with, Manny Pacquiao. Yes, that Manny. The 8th Division legend. The southpaw storm who once danced around De La Hoya, battered Cotto, and dropped Thurman in round 1 like he owed him money. Could it be real? Was the man who once reigned as boxing's most electrifying fighter now helping guide the new era's most feared puncher? There's no confirmation, no verified photo, no press conference, just whispers, fan edits, maybe even a little wishful thinking. But sometimes, a rumor hits harder than a fact. Because in a sport built on hype and heart, the possibility of Tank and Pac-Man in the same gym lit the internet on fire, not because it's expected, but because it makes sense. What could Gervonta Davis learn from Manny Pacquiao? What could the veteran still give to a champion already crowned? And what would it mean for both legacies if their paths really did cross before the next big fight?
It's always a little better than I thought.
Oh, down again. And now he might be out this time. That's it. Ricky had
2 southpaw monsters, one rising, one eternal. And even if they never touched gloves behind closed doors,
This isn't just speculation, it's a question boxing fans can't shake. 2 southpaw monsters. One rising. One eternal. And even if they never touched gloves behind closed doors, just the idea might be enough to change everything. It started like most boxing rumors do, quiet, unverified, and just believable enough to spread. A blurry image. A misheard comment. A fan tweet that read, Gervonta spotted near wild card. Pacquiao might be helping with southpaw footwork. No source. No confirmation. Just enough smoke to make people start looking for fire. And then came the thumbnails. YouTube titles in all caps, Pacquiao training Tank Davis. Instagram pages posting side-by-sides of Manny and Gervonta landing identical knockouts. TikToks editing them into the same gym with music that made it feel real. And within 48 hours, the boxing world was buzzing. What made it believable wasn't just the footage, it was the logic. Manny's back in shape. Wild card gym still active. Gervonta has fought in LA before. And with Mayweather no longer in his corner, fans started connecting dots that weren't there. But here's where it gets deeper, the rumor didn't need to be true to work. It played on a fantasy, one where old-school brilliance met new-school power. Where the most relentless volume puncher of all time lent his wisdom to the cleanest finisher of the modern era. And in a sport starving for lineage, that idea just clicked. People wanted it to be true because it felt like legacy, passing the torch, not in the ring but in the gym. Quietly. Powerfully.
Manny Pacquiao. Oh, down goes Thurman!
And let me tell you, that was just a quick punch.
Well, he's talked about his maturity. That yes. He seems kind of awkward, but in this fight he's not looking. There's a big left hand.
No statement from Team Pacquiao. No denial from Davis's camp either. That silence became fuel. After all, boxing thrives on mystery. Why spoil a good narrative with reality when the possibility sells better? The rumor lived in that space between truth and desire. And that space in boxing is sacred. It's where legends are born. Where generations cross paths. And for a few days, fans believed they were watching history unfold, not in a ring but in a dimly lit gym, where hands wrapped in tape whisper louder than microphones. Even if it never happened, it felt like it could have. Let's suspend disbelief for a moment. Let's say the rumor was real. That Gervonta Davis, with all his knockouts and swagger, walked into Wildcard Gym, found Manny Pacquiao in training gear, and said, "Let's work." What happens next isn't just a sparring session, it's a meeting of two worlds. Speed and timing. Youth and wisdom. Instinct and calculation. Because Pacquiao isn't just a retired fighter. He's a living manual of controlled chaos. And Tank Davis? He's a student of destruction. Still learning. Still evolving. Still hungry for something beyond belts. And that's where Manny comes in. Pacquiao's greatest weapon was never just his speed, it was his unpredictability. He came in at angles, used half steps to reset the fight, and made you miss before you realized he'd changed your position. Davis is a tactician, a patient hunter. He waits for you to slip up. But Manny? He makes you slip without knowing it. That contrast could sharpen Davis's offense into something terrifying. Imagine Tank borrowing not just Pacquiao's footwork, but his rhythm disruption, his ability to throw punches where most boxers don't think they exist. And it goes both ways. Pacquiao could gain something too, not just physical sharpness, but connection. Manny has always been more than a fighter, he's a mentor, a symbol. But working with someone like Tank would allow him to pass on that knowledge in real time. Imagine Manny studying Tank's compact power shots, those surgically placed uppercuts, and nodding with the smile of a veteran who's seen every style and still finds something new. Then there's the mental side. Pacquiao's discipline is legendary: no alcohol, no distractions during camp, just family, prayer, and war. For Davis, who's had run-ins outside the ring, that energy could be grounding. Less of a trainer-trainee dynamic, more of a brotherhood built on silence and sweat. Rocha's style is forward pressure. Ford's is reactive timing. Combine the two, and you get something nearly impossible to predict. And Davis, for all his brilliance, has never fought with volume. He doesn't need to. But imagine if he could. If Manny showed Tank how to flood opponents with 5-shot combos from weird angles, not just to land, but to confuse. That's a new kind of threat, one that doesn't wait to counter, one that comes to you from places you didn't even know were open. They wouldn't need to talk much, just one nod, one sequence, one shared look that says, "We see the fight the same way now." Even one day in the gym could have echoed across generations. It's not just that Gervonta Davis and Manny Pacquiao are both southpaws, it's how they're southpaws. There's a rhythm, a dance that orthodox fighters simply don't hear. Southpaws don't just fight from the other side, they think from the other side. And when you put two of the best lefties in modern boxing under the same roof, something primal gets unlocked. Pacquiao fought like he was rewriting geometry. Angles were weapons. He'd leap to his right, slide back, then strike from a direction you thought was off limits. Davis? He's different. He doesn't bounce, he stalks. Quiet. Composed. Until he isn't. But at their core, they both break the same rulebook. They don't respect traditional setups. They make their own. The left hand is everything. For Manny, it's a whip, a slicing blade that comes mid-combo or off a step. For Davis, it's a hammer, heavy, sudden, the kind of shot that ends fights without warning. But both know how to disguise it. They'll jab you with the right, freeze you with a feint, then snap the left through your guard before you even brace. If Davis ever trained with Pacquiao, this is the exchange that matters most, not punches, but philosophy. How to create space when there's none. How to fight off the back foot as a southpaw without giving ground. How to own the weirdness of being unorthodox. Because most fighters aren't built to handle one southpaw in their career, let alone a southpaw who moves like Pacquiao or punches like Davis. And while they approach fights differently, one in volume, one in detonations, they share an invisible thread: unpredictability. The opponent doesn't know what's real until the canvas is rushing toward their face. something timeless gets shared. And no opponent prepares for that. Let's be honest, Manny Pacquiao training Gervonta Davis was never likely. The rumor had no confirmation, no photos, no whispers from credible insiders. But here's the question boxing can't stop asking: could it still happen? Maybe not in the shadows of a full training camp, but even a single shared session, a quiet gym meetup or a public sparring exhibition would be enough to shake the sport. Because both fighters are still active in their own ways. Pacquiao may not be on a comeback tour, but he's never stepped away from the grind. He still trains regularly, still posts footage hitting the mitts with terrifying sharpness. And when reporters ask if he'd fight again, he always answers with a smile that says, "I could if I wanted to." Davis, meanwhile, is ramping up for another high-stakes bout. Rumors fly around potential opponents: Pitbull Cruz rematch, Shakur Stevenson, maybe even Devin Haney. But no matter who's in front of him, Tank is always looking for that extra edge. So what happens if their paths do cross? If Pacquiao stops by a Vegas gym while Davis is working the bags? Or if Davis flies to LA and gets a few rounds in at Wildcard, just to move around? There's precedent. Pacquiao has trained with younger fighters before: Filipino prodigies, rising contenders, even MMA guys looking for footwork lessons. He's not stingy with knowledge, he's just selective. And Davis, for all his street-tough exterior, he's smart. He listens. He learns. He wants to master the craft, not just dominate it. So even if the original rumor wasn't real, there's still time to make it real. Imagine the headlines: Tank meets the Pac-Man. Even a 15-minute shadowboxing session caught on camera would break the internet. Not for clout. Not for legacy chasing. But for the rarest thing in boxing: mutual evolution. A student meeting a master, or maybe two masters comparing notes. And what does Pacquiao have to gain? Legacy is already locked. But sharing knowledge keeps it living. Roach once said Manny's biggest joy wasn't fighting, it was teaching. That's why he's still lacing up the gloves at nearly 50. Not because he has to, because it's in him. So the door's not closed, not yet. Boxing moves fast. One phone call, one handshake, one respect-filled nod across a gym could make this fantasy real. And if it does, it won't be hype, it'll be history. Because boxing isn't just punches, it's personality. The ring reflects more than skill. It reveals mindset, history, and hunger. And if you strip back the noise, the media, the manufactured beef, you'll see why Gervonta Davis and Manny Pacquiao, two men from different eras, different continents, and different upbringings, could actually be the perfect fit in the gym. Because despite the age gap and contrast in demeanor, they're wired the same. Both are compact. Both are southpaws. Both fight bigger men like they don't care. And both came from nothing: Tank from the hardscrabble streets of Baltimore, abandoned by his parents and raised by the fight game. Pacquiao from the slums of General Santos, where he sold donuts just to survive. They didn't just fight their way to the top. They escaped something. That type of hunger doesn't fade. It recognizes itself.
Pacquiao's finest technique. Delivering powerful, sweeping, wide-arching left hook. Even the master of defensive prowess, Floyd Mayweather, did not escape from this devastating left hook.
Because in previous fights we've seen that he seems kind of awkward, but in this fight he's not looking.
But it goes deeper than grit. Their styles overlap in ways that make them natural complements. Pacquiao overwhelms with angles, Davis with timing. Manny was a swarm of bees, Tank is a sniper. But if Davis learned to incorporate just one of Pacquiao's entry angles while keeping his trademark patience, that's lethal. A fighter who can close distance unpredictably and finish precisely is nearly unbeatable. And defensively, both share an underrated trait: adaptability. Watch Tank roll with punches and reset in the pocket. It's eerily similar to how Pacquiao used to pivot mid-combo and circle out. Neither man ever really fights in a straight line. They're all about misdirection, and that's not just instinct, it's strategy. Strategy that could be taught.
This rumor wasn't just viral, it was symbolic. Because
Their mentalities match too. Despite fame, both keep small circles. Manny stuck with Roach for 2 decades. Tank, for all his celebrity, is still loyal to Coach Calvin. They respect loyalty. They trust silence. Neither is flashy in the gym, they just work. Quiet killers. And maybe that's what makes this pairing not just possible, but powerful. If they were to train together, it wouldn't be a media circus. It would be private, focused, 2 men from different maps speaking the same language with gloves on. Sometimes mentorship doesn't need words. It needs rhythm, breathing, shared space, and just 1 second where greatness recognizes itself in someone else. That's why this pairing would work. Not because of headlines, but because deep down they're already cut from the same cloth. This rumor wasn't just viral, it was symbolic. Because when fans saw Pacquiao x Davis trending, it wasn't just about 2 southpaws. It was about something deeper. Boxing has been starving for connection. Between generations, between eras, between fighters who aren't afraid to reach across time and share what they've earned. Boxing doesn't have a farm system. There's no NBA-style draft, no structured mentorship pipelines. You learn from who you're around if you're lucky. So when fans imagined Davis picking up movement secrets from Pacquiao, it wasn't just thrilling, it felt right. Like a missing piece finally being placed. Because the best in this sport don't get to stay on top forever, but their knowledge, their craft, that doesn't have to fade. The idea that a fighter like Pacquiao, who built his name throwing punches in flurries no one could explain, might pass a piece of that to someone like Davis, who knocks people cold with surgical precision, that's how greatness evolves.
It's kind of awkward, and this body's not looking. There's a big left hand!
This fantasy made fans imagine a future where the sport isn't divided by ego but united by legacy. Where Mayweather could one day coach Shakur Stevenson. Where Andre Ward might corner Devin Haney. Where instead of calling each other out on Twitter, legends and phenoms actually link up and build. And look, it doesn't always work. Too many egos, too many contracts, too much pride. But when it does happen, it's magic. When Bernard Hopkins gave Jiren Andis advice at a press event, you could feel it. When Tyson Fury praised Lennox Lewis's technique mid-interview, fans listened. Because respect in boxing is rare. And when it's real, it's powerful. The rumor faded. No confirmation. No photo. No footage of Davis and Pacquiao wrapping hands side by side. No legendary mid-session under the wild card lights. But the story stayed with us not because it happened, but because it could have. That's boxing's strange magic. The myth lives even without the moment. And sometimes that's more powerful. Because whether Tank ever traded a single jab with Manny or not, the idea landed like a clean left, straight, sharp, fast, and impossible to ignore. It wasn't about sparring. It was about transmission, wisdom, legacy, the rare chance to imagine 2 distinctly different fighters speaking the same brutal, beautiful language. Pacquiao doesn't need to train Tank Davis. His name's already etched in granite. And Davis doesn't need Pacquiao to win, his knockout reel is already terrifying enough. But the lesson lives in the what if. What if every generation looked back and offered something forward? What if learning wasn't weakness, but strength? This wasn't about a headline, it was about a moment of curiosity that reminded fans how connected the sport could be. That fighters aren't just islands. They're part of a river that runs deep, with currents of rhythm, resilience, and respect.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more exciting videos, make sure to hit the bell icon and stay updated. Subscribe to Boxing Hub now for all the latest in boxing.